Hi, this is LaJune, season 3, back with another amazing guest. She is a motivational speaker, TED Talk, Joe Weatherford. Thank you for joining me today. You guys are going to love her story, amazing transformation in life for her. And I thought she would definitely be inspirational for so many women and young girls who struggle with life and being in the spotlight. So I'm not going to give it all away. Joe, welcome again. Can you give a background on yourself?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me and for that beautiful introduction. I really do have a passion for women, especially young women today. It's interesting, the generation that we grew up in, we didn't have social media, and that truly has been a game changer. And so, as an addiction specialist, somebody that was also in the modeling industry, I have a real compassion for young women that are trying to navigate the social media landscape as far as expectations, body image issues. It was so fascinating. I was just watching an account that I follow, and so many of the images that we're seeing right now are AI generated. So it was like bad enough when we had to compare ourselves, to like actually perfect women, and now there's robots. So it's it's just crazy, and it's so important that we don't lose ourselves in that. And also from an addiction standpoint, what social media does to the brain, and the dopamine release and chasing the likes and really outsourcing our power to other people. And am I enough? And when we ask the world, am I enough? We've already said that we aren't. So we need to not ask permission for that. We need to just own it. And so really important to be mindful of the stories we tell ourselves as we're navigating this space. And there's some great apps. I just downloaded this one called Opal, and it will actually kick you out of your apps at a
Really?
certain time. Yeah. So like I might have gotten sober 12 years ago, but in a lot of ways I have zero discipline. So it's great. It's like, it will override your poor decision making. So sorry for that rant. Before I go into my story, I just wanted to make sure that I really hit that because I feel it's such an important topic right now. But yeah, so my story, I grew up in a home with a lot of addiction. Everybody was really high functioning though. So I learned at a very early age that you could be an absolute train wreck inside your house and then just like so functional and successful on the outside. And like many kids that are adult children of alcoholics, we tend to either not use substances or at all or become that, which has wounded us. And I certainly went full blown addiction route. I was completely addicted to alcohol by age 12.
Oh,
Um, Lots of reasons. There was the environment, there was social learning, there was molestation when I was 4. And then there was just general loneliness. I think a lot of times when we look at why somebody is addicted, we think there's like this big T trauma. And I mean, yes, certainly I did have those, but just the daily grind of being alive was enough to make me want to drink. I always felt like I didn't fit in this world. Like I was one of those weird kids. I had a diary when I was 4, and I remember just like journaling about like what's it all about, like existential crisis right off the bat. But yeah, so it was interesting. And again, I very much was like my mother in a sense. I was exceptionally high functioning. So graduated second in my class, full ride scholarships to lots of great universities, graduated college. And then I found myself working in the adult industry, which was never the plan. But when I graduated college, I was in broadcast journalism, ended up working for Playboy TV. And then from there, it just, as my addiction got worse, my options became very limited. I was not going to go and host a show on NBC anymore like I had. And here I was being told that I could show up on set drunk, high, getting paid a ridiculous amount of money. And so I was in that world for about a year, and it's a very interesting space for a woman to be in. Now, granted, this was back in 2005. It was a much different culture back then. I was actually treated with incredible respect and never forced to do anything I didn't feel comfortable doing, never coerced into anything. The money was good back then. And now it's very, very different. I can see where a lot of women are turning to things like OnlyFans and ways that you can put the money back in your pocket. But the one thing I'll say, and I do challenge women on this, I never ever judge anybody for their decisions, and I'm not ashamed of what I did. And what I will say is, I would never have done it sober. So I think
Mhm.
we're looking at ourselves as women in the world and our sexuality and what are our most sacred offerings. It's like if you need to be drunk or high to do something, it's obviously out of alignment. And so I would just invite people to step into that exploration of that question, whether it's a marriage you're trying to survive or whatever it is. There's so often a deeper calling for us to change our life, and the substances numb the discomfort of being out of alignment. So then we ignore those signals. But really, they're there to help us. So my anxiety, my depression, everything I was dealing with back then was telling me, like, yo, this is not for you. And I finally listened and cleaned up and went and got my master's and became a professor. So literally went from playboy to professor. And yeah, I've just had an amazing career in the mental health field now for the last 12 years. I have a deep passion helping people navigate addiction. When I was trying to get sober, I didn't see anyone that was genuinely happy. I really did not experience those people. I found people that were going to like 4 AA meetings a day just to try and white knuckle through it. And I was just not at all interested in that. I was like, if I'm going to be miserable, I'd rather be fucked up and miserable, like I genuinely don't want to suffer. So, yeah, that's been one of the biggest passions of mine, is to let people know that there is bliss and joy on the other side when you really do the work.
I love that you talked on loneliness. That's something that we don't touch on. We touch on depression, stress, anxiety, um, you name it, we touch on it. But loneliness is a huge thing, especially when you said you felt like you didn't belong here. You didn't have a place. And there's so many people who operate on functional depression, but loneliness is one of the major things in that. You can be surrounded by millions of people and feel alone. So
Yes.
for you, how did you navigate at such a young age of feeling lonely to this point of life where you are now, where you've gotten the help? What was it for you that took away, that said, you know what, I don't want to feel lonely anymore? So, what was it for you that made that feeling come to an end, or are you still experiencing that at times?
Yeah, it's such a beautiful question. And I love that you highlighted that we can be surrounded by so many people and still feel alone. I can remember hearing a client once tell me, she said, when I'm drinking, I'm always alone, but I never feel lonely. And when
Mm.
I'm sober, I'm never alone, but I always feel lonely. So it's like for me, the drinking really let me escape that. And of course, I was still alone. I just didn't care that I was alone in those moments. It gave me, that numbness, that emotional anesthetic to ignore my loneliness, and it worked for a while. But like all things, there's a point of diminishing returns where for me it just got so bad. I was drunk, and then the shame from that, and then the loneliness compounded. I mean, I was really at the point. I was not gonna live anymore. I was absolutely ready to take my own life. And that point of nothingness, of truly wanting to die, was the catalyst for me to say, I'm willing to do anything. Okay, I'm here. I don't think it gets any lower than that. So let me try something else. And I was never in denial. I knew that I was really sick. I actually wanted to get sober. I just couldn't. My cravings were so intense, so awful. I had so much unresolved trauma. I would have a month, I would have a week, I would have even a year and a half once without alcohol, and I just couldn't stay away. And that was also just so defeating. There's nothing worse than hopelessness unless it's also paired with despair. It just hits different from those like wham, both sides coming at you. But for me, it was really that complete lack of anything positive that drove me to try something new, and I did, and I tried multiple treatments, and then finally something worked.
So, for that point, for you, with you coming from a family, let me go into drinking, or did you see how people in your family, how they responded to drinking? Was that your immediate go-to, or was it something else for you?
It's interesting. I can remember the moment that I became an alcoholic, and it was the first time I drank. And I knew where all the alcohol was. I didn't need to hide it. It was I had free range access. So I remember I made the worst jungle juice you could ever imagine. I just poured everything into this water bottle. And I had my first heartbreak. I was 12, he was 19, the bad boy. It was bad, right? Just everything about it. But it really genuinely like shattered my soul. I was so upset when this fell apart. And I remember grabbing that water bottle and just pounding it and feeling relief for the first time in my life. I mean, truly. So for me, I had seen people drink. I knew it must do something. I had no idea how it was going to impact me, but the thing that hooked me was that feeling of like, oh my God, I am free. And it's so interesting how it's the duality of life, right? So something that became an actual prison for me was also the thing that like set me free for a while. And, just to tie it into loneliness, I was feeling that loneliness. And I love Gabor Mate. He talks about addiction as filling this God-shaped hole. And for me, that's what it was. I was so disconnected from myself. Of course, I couldn't connect to anybody. I could be in a room with other people, but I was so insecure. I hated myself. I thought everybody else did too. There was absolutely zero chance even the people that did show up for me in a positive way were going to get in, because that disconnection was already within my own heart. And so when I drank, it was this feeling like I could almost feel love again because it shut down all the darkness within me. Now, that also was a momentary relief mechanism, and that numbness obviously is not sustainable, and that's not the goal. That's not why we're here. The whole point is to be able to love ourselves through intense negative emotions, but I had no tools to do that. And so here I found something that kind of worked for a second, and so I just latched on for dear life. Like it really became my oxygen.
Wow. So you mentioned at 12 you were dating someone that was 19.
Yes.
All right. So can you kind of touch on that? Do you think it was you were trying to fill a void with this individual, or what was it for you that you gravitated?
It's an interesting question, and it's been 20 years of intense therapy for me to really kind of dig into it. But it really started at 4 when I was molested by somebody much older than me. That dynamic played out. So Freud is an interesting character, but he did have some really, and I think wise little gems. And one of his theories is mastery complex, that what we don't master that is painful to us, we will keep repeating through patterns. So we keep putting ourselves in similar energies and situations with a hope that we can heal that original wound by recreating it. Now, this is all done unconsciously, of course, and by no means am I victim blaming or saying it's your
Right.
fault. You keep putting yourself in these situations. But for me, like I genuinely did, even the age split was the same. So I recreated this situation where an older classmate or an older peer, 7 years older, whatever it was, wanted me sexually. And it was such an intense moment of connection in my life that I wanted to recreate it, but like older and then be able to keep it or do it on my terms, or there was some kind of energy around that. And so I did with this individual. And looking back, I mean, it makes zero sense. He wasn't even that attractive. He was a high school dropout, lived in a trailer park. Like, this was not, some hot, college football player. No, this is somebody anyway, I'm not even going to go there. So for me, it was very much like me trying to work through my wounding. And I think there was a part too that was super defiant. I was very, very mad at my family. And that was a pretty good FU to all of them. And then two, it was a cry for help. It was a deep cry for help. There's no way that is ever appropriate. And it should have never been allowed to happen. And I also feel for my parents when you have a child that's like, try and stop me. I was at that point, I became exceptionally defiant and I really didn't care. I mean, that's a scary thing when you have somebody that it was like, well, we'll take this or we'll do this or blah, blah, blah. I mean, I just didn't care about anything. So I was very hard to control or lead in any real way. So yeah, that was an exceptionally damaging relationship to me in many, many ways. And then also the sexual promiscuity that came from that. Again, like if you're a woman and you are opening yourself to somebody else's energy, that's a big deal. Now, whether or not we all release oxytocin and get attached and all that kind of stuff, I would never say that. And I have a lot of women that I know that have very high conscious sex with people they're not in relationships with. So none of this is about a judgment. But for me, when I look back on my behavior, when I was molested at 4, I developed a belief that sex was love, that sex was connection. I didn't realize that many, many men do not feel that way, and sex is just sex. So it was damaging for me. And my entire life, that has been something that I've had to really work through, is to not objectify myself, to not see me as that's what makes me special. And I think a lot, going back to young women, there's a lot of messages now that, you need to look this way and this is what people care about and all this kind of stuff. And it's like tuning out the noise and just following your own path. Like we all have such a unique fingerprint to leave on this world. And the size of your waist or whatever is so irrelevant. Like if you're beautiful, great, be beautiful, own that shit, 100%. Use it to your advantage, enjoy the hell out of it. But that's not what makes us powerful, especially as women. Our gifts are so, so, so beyond our skin.
I agree. And I think that, for myself, I was molested as well. And going through that stage of, it wasn't, I never looked at it as love. I always looked at it as I needed to be touched or have that feeling.
Yeah.
So I would rub against something just to get that feeling because it was, a feeling that you've had for such a long time. And when you're so young, you don't understand it.
Absolutely. No, it's unbelievable. It's interesting. I was walking this morning and just thinking about one of my clients right now, and this happens with kids all the time. And I'm certainly not interjecting this into your story. It's kind of a sidetracked thought that I feel is really important. So many people, when they are molested and they're young and they enjoy it, that creates such an intense amount of shame. And again, it's very unconscious, but we almost believe we deserve it or there's something dirty or wrong about us. And I just want to take a second and just honor like anybody that's experienced any kind of sexual trauma that had any pleasure from it, to just normalize that, because we are humans with very, very, very beautiful mechanisms built into our bodies that help to create the human race. And it's so important that we don't own that shame. Like the only shame that belongs anywhere is with that perpetrator. And it's so sad because the shame is created, but perpetrators are great at flicking it off,
Right.
not taking responsibility. And so somebody has to, and we as the victims often do. And just to further this conversation of women and our beliefs about our bodies and what we're here for, there is an intense belief in obligation, like we are obligated to provide that service. And so, whether it's through people pleasing or sexual gratification, I mean, I'm 41. I've done a lot of work on myself, and I will start dating somebody or getting into a relationship, and I will feel that within me, like, oh, I owe this person something. And
Mhm.
we're really untangling a lot of stories. And when we think about women passing down that belief through our ancestors, there's a phenomenal study when we talk about ancestral imprints and how they impact us. So there was a worm, and it's kind of a Pavlovian study. They show it a light and then they shock it, right? And they do that so many times. The worm sees the light, it gets shocked, it jumps, right? So eventually they stop shocking the worm, but as soon as it sees the light, it just instinctually jumps. Now, here's where it gets interesting. That worm had babies. Those babies were never, ever shocked, but when they saw a light, they jump. So these behavioral patterns and ways that we carry ourselves and respond to the world really are passed down through our genes. So think about the history of women and what we have been through and what we are, working with, right? And you go, oh my God, yeah, there's a lot to explore here. And what is the story I want to tell? And what are the unconscious beliefs that are still running my life? I mean, I recommend everybody do an intense relationship inventory where you go through every key relationship, sexual or romantic, in your life, and you explore, how did I feel in my body with them? How was it when it ended? Who did I become in order to keep them? Like, when we can really see who we are in these different relationships, that can help us navigate to some of those more automatic programs that are difficult to access because they're so ingrained in us. But it's really beautiful to start seeing them and challenging them so we can rewrite them and start showing up the way we really, really want to.
I love that. And that is a very good suggestion. I think when we get out of relationships, we either focus on the negativity or the heartbreak of it. We don't really focus on, well, how did I feel with that person? What did that person bring into my life? Or what did I offer that person? Or moving forward to the next relationship, what am I looking for? What am I willing to offer this person? So that's a very good suggestion. So I want to talk about how you made the transition from Playboy, Professor, TED Talk, motivational speaker. How did you make that transition? Because, of course, those are all different things. And what was it about those that just said, you know what, this is where I need to gravitate towards?
It's interesting with working for Playboy and all that, it really was just my only option. I made a ton of money and it fed my ego just enough, and I could not have had a regular job. So that one just really fell in my lap. And of course, then I get out of that industry and I get my master's and I'm going to teach. And that was my greatest fear on earth, that somebody would find out. And I was smart. I always shot under aliases. Like, I didn't want to get famous. I just wanted to get paid. But I had this deep fear of, like, oh my God, what if one of my 19-year-old male students has seen me naked? Like, just this, it still makes me want to vomit when I think about it. So I was petrified. So I didn't talk about that period of my life until recently. And it's interesting how sometimes we're liberated through our greatest pains. I'm still right in the middle of a pretty unfortunate divorce. And my ex-husband, like basically I'm telling everybody who you really are. And I'm like, really? You're going to share what I did 20 years ago? Like revenge porn's a bad look on you, not me. So I finally just started talking about it because I'm like, I'm not ashamed of it.
Right.
So I'm just going to own it as a part of my life. But that was a very, very tricky transition for me. And I was terrified that both would be known. And then I ended up owning a martial arts school and I ran our kids program, and I'm just like, oh God. So I had to hold that fear for a very, very long time. Once I started teaching, I realized how much I love speaking, and I really, really love advocating for drug courts. I'm such a proponent of treatment over punishment. I just hate what is happening in this country right now. And I mean, it's we can get into all the laws and that's a whole different rabbit hole, but I just think about all the people that are rotting in prison right now for marijuana when I can go buy it, in
Right.
most of the states. It's just, and then, we get into the racial aspect and all, it's just, yeah, that's a whole nother podcast, but we have really got to change our approach when it comes to addiction. We put all of our money into trying to stop the supply instead of asking why the demand. I mean, this is basic economic theory. And it's like, why are people wanting to check out at the rate that they are? And it's really scary. There is a new synthetic opiate going around, and it's so brand new. I can't even tell you the name of it right off the top of my tongue. Unfortunately, some very dear friends of mine, their son overdosed on it.
Oh, wow.
They are thinking it could be 800 times more deadly than fentanyl. He was only the third death in the United States, which is where you're not hearing about it yet. And you cannot test for it. And that's what these assholes keep doing. They keep changing the molecules of these synthetic opiates just slightly. And to be able to test for something, you have to know what it's made out of.
Right.
And so this poor kid was doing everything right as far as buying drugs off, the streets. He tested for fentanyl. They had Narcan in the house, all the things you could do for harm reduction. And he passed away in his sleep. And his poor friends, these university students, are like, oh my God, he died right in front of us. We didn't know he was overdosing. And it's just heartbreaking. And you just can't. The good old days of I'm just gonna buy some drugs are over.
Over.
Like you just can't. And it's not a moral thing. It's none of that shit. It's just you actually are playing Russian roulette with your life. And it's not a scare tactic. I know too many people that have died. I've been at the university for 12 years. I very close pulse on young people and their behaviors. And you just can't, because now you can't even test for it. There is no such thing as responsible unless you know the chemist you're getting it from. You have zero authority over safety. And so, when it comes to addiction, what people don't understand when they look at me, and even when I did my TED talk, a lot of the comments I got were, oh, what has she been through or whatever. They look at me and they don't understand how sick I was. I mean, multiple suicide attempts. I was in jail. People look at my life now. I sold everything and moved to Cabo and I live on the beach and it's amazing. I love my life. It's awesome. I'm not lonely. I'm super happy. I have a kick-ass life. But I fought tooth and nail from the bottom. There is things I will go to my grave never sharing. But trust me, yes, I did it. I've experienced it. I was in that life. So if I can do it, anyone can do it. And I know that. I feel that. So the only time we cannot help someone is when they're dead. And right now, that is what's happening across the board. And it is heartbreaking what this tidal wave of devastation. I mean, you will never be the same. You lose a child yes, you can heal, you can function, you can move forward, but like a part of you is gone forever. That will be my friends that I love so much will never be the same.
Totally agree. And the crazy part is our country invests in opioids and opioid treatments and things like that, but the investment in mental health and people who are buying crack and cocaine and heroin and just the list goes on and on and on. They're not getting help. They're not getting the treatment. they deserve of what's going on. But if you look at an individual who's taking prescription drugs, the treatment is totally different.
Right. It is really amazing. I mean, I remember I had multiple times that I almost got fired at the university, but one of the first times was when I was on a marijuana panel, and this was right when we were looking at legalization, and Tick Seegerbaum, who was the person that introduced the bill for California, and I were on a panel together, and we were talking about the roots of why marijuana became illegal. And of course, we know this is not me making things up. Like, it was DuPont Chemical. Everybody had their money in nylon. They needed to make the hemp plant illegal. So everything got made illegal. And it was about money, and it was about racism, because you want to take a population out, make the substance they use illegal. These are all common knowledge topics as far as my mind was concerned. And I literally almost got fired, and a lot of grant money was pulled because I made that statement. That was in 2015. That's how asleep we are as a country about the cultural implications, the legal implications, and really, like, I mean, Dave Chappelle has a great message on this. He's like, yeah, the crack epidemic has just been wreaking havoc forever. And now you white people are dying from opiates, and suddenly people are paying attention, and it's just this unbelievable lack of empathy that we have for one another. And as long as it's not happening in my house, it's not happening. And I get compassion fatigue. I mean, when all of this started in the Middle East, I had to actually get off social media. I was like, there's nothing I can do about it. And this is heartbreaking. And I've never seen a dead body. And now I'm seeing decapitated kids pop up in my feed. I mean, we do need to take care of ourselves and really prioritize where we're going to delegate our energy. But it's the one thing I will say about the prescription pill / opiate crisis is it really leveled the playing field. Like, this idea that there's a stereotype that's going to become addicted got eradicated, because the reality is most of us are going to have a surgery in our lifetime, and you just don't know. Like, I am addicted to everything in the world, but I hate opiates. When I was 2 years sober, my appendix ruptured, and all I could think of was like, here I go. I was on Dilaudid for 2 weeks, which is one of the strongest opiates. I couldn't wait to get off that shit. So we just don't know until it's too late. So when we have pharmacy companies that are making substances like Oxycontin, which are designed to kill people and get them so addicted that they can pad their pockets. When we have things like that being distributed by doctors, like, it's game on. You will see every race, age, socioeconomic. I mean, there's no bounds. And that is what we're seeing. And so it's like, you can't just cover your eyes and pretend it's not a thing anymore. Everybody knows somebody that has been impacted by this. And, addiction too just runs so rampant. Most of my clients are high performers. And so they're not quite at that level where they need like intensive inpatient rehab, but it's ruining their relationships. I mean, something I end up saying at least once a week is, you're about to lose your marriage. And it has to come down to this. The drinking is just right under the line of bad enough to do something about it, where somebody's going to force you, or you're going to have legal consequences, or you're going to get fired or divorced. But it's like this death by 1,000 cuts, where it's just this slow bleed. And that's where I'm actually grateful mine got so bad that I had to do something about it. I'm so thankful, because that is a different kind of hell, when you just have that slow energy leak and it's allowing all this darkness in, but it's not enough to get you to move.
So, what message would you give women, young girls who are trying to let go of addiction?
It starts with a compassionate inquiry. So one of the things that we need to be asking, this is another Gabor Mate quote. He's my greatest mentor. So I highly recommend first check out some of his videos. He's got a ton of free resources. But one of the things he says is we need to ask what's right with the drug. So the first thing is to really tune in, tap in. What does this do for me? What does it allow me to feel or not feel? Right? Like maybe it numbs painful emotions, and maybe it gives me the euphoria I don't feel. When we have trauma or lack of attunement in early childhood development, we don't actually feel a lot of the feel good chemicals. And so I can look at what somebody's using and have a pretty good idea of what they're trying to manufacture within themselves through different substances, stimulants, depressants, any of it. So it's like, get really curious of what does this do for me? What am I trying to experience? What I'm trying to feel? And then be really honest. What is the negative consequence? We need to be able to look at both. Here's the positive, here's the negative, and then try and do a 90-day reset, and that will illuminate a lot for you, because if we're not addicted, we should be able to do that. Maybe you start slower. Maybe it's a 21-day reset. And those are great to do anyway. I mean, we live in a dopamine nation. It's like nonstop with technology and drugs and that heightened experiences, right? So it's good to reset anyway. But during that time, it's like if you notice that you're not able to, it's like, yeah, get some help, because it doesn't need to be I'm in jail or getting divorced for it to be taking away your essence. And I'll leave you with this, because with women, most of us, it's alcohol. I won't say most, but a lot of your listeners. So think about this. If I want to have a lavender essential oil, I take lavender, right? I take the plants, and what do? I put it in alcohol. I put it in ethanol, and it sucks the essence out of it. So us, as these beautiful, divine, feminine creature plants, we put alcohol in, and when we put too much, it literally sucks out our essence. And so how do we love ourselves enough to develop practices that allow us to withstand everything in life? How do we get to the point where we are so connected to ourselves, to God, that we are like, okay, bring it. I did a 30-day, didn't leave my room once, because I was so tired of not dealing with my emotions. Now, most people are not going to do that, but it's like, sit in your shit until you discharge the energy around it, and have somebody help you do that, because that is a superpower. When you are unafraid of your emotions, you can feel your feels, get the messages, make the decisions. You will have a beautiful life, but it may be really challenging. You get sober, you leave your marriage. You get sober, you change your job, because all of a sudden you have to tell the truth. And that can be really scary. And I understand that, but it's like the world deserves your essence.
I agree. So I'm going to ask you 3 fun things about yourself. You ready?
Sure.
All right. If you could travel anywhere in the world, where would that be?
I really want to go to Egypt. My best friend just got back, and I've been looking at all his videos, and that's one place I've never been yet, and I 100% cannot wait to go to Egypt.
Okay. What is a favorite food that you love?
I love steak. I am a red meat girl, and a good steak there's nothing better. That's my favorite.
And what fun things that you enjoy doing?
I love yoga. I love hiking. I love traveling. I love going new places. I have such a wide network of friends now. It's amazing. We are just always going and playing, and, and getting divorced. My best friend moved in with me for a while. So I'm just like, we're just 40, just having like slumber parties. It's phenomenal, you know, it's the best year of my life. So, yeah, there's so many things I love. I really love being active. I'm so grateful for my body for allowing me to move. So yeah, martial arts and all of it. Love it all.
And what would you say to your younger self at this point in your life?
Hang on, it gets better. It's going to get so much better than you can ever conceptualize. And that's the thing. It's like our small minds. That's great. Manifest, dream, have goals, but like know that behind the curtain, what's actually coming is so much wilder, so much more expansive, so much bigger than our small minds will often allow us to dream. So be open, you know, show up for yourself, do the work, be healthy, be heart centered, you know, be kind, be fierce, and just allow those messages to come through and just be big, you know, take up space.
I love it. I thank you for joining me and sharing your story. I know you shared it so many times, but I think when we discuss our past, it becomes kind of personal because you have to relive it. So I thank you for sharing and being vulnerable with me to share your story. I appreciate it. Can you tell people where they can find you if you want to be reached out to?
Yes, thank you so much for asking. I am pretty active on Instagram. So at jo.weatherford, like weather and Ford. And then also that is my website. So www.joeweatherford.com. Those are the best two places to reach me. And please, if you have any questions, you want any resources, you could just shoot me a note. It's like, hey, I'm interested in learning more about this. Yeah, so just don't hesitate to reach out. It's always my honor to help in any way that I can.
Well, thank you again. You can find her on Instagram or her website. Um, until next time, this is Mind, Health, and Wellness with LaJune. You can find me at lajunesingleton.com.